Today, we're tackling a topic that doesn't always get enough attention in construction: stress, anxiety, and really mental health in general. Being a construction supervisor means carrying huge responsibility. You're managing safety, productivity, budgets, and the well being of your team, all the while trying to hold yourself together under pressure. Long hours, tight schedules, and constant problem solving can take a toll on anyone's mind.
It's time for the IHSA Safety Podcast.
Welcome to A Day in the Life of a Supervisor, Part 2, Self-Care, the podcast that dives into the reality of supervising. Because strong leadership isn't just about getting the job done, it's about staying healthy enough mentally and physically to keep leading tomorrow. I'm your host, Holly Baril, and in this episode, we'll explore how supervisors can recognize signs of stress and burnout in themselves and their crews. How to build a culture where it's okay to speak up and ask for help. We'll talk about real experiences from the field, strategies for maintaining mental resilience, and resources available to those in the industry who might be struggling. So take a moment, breathe, and let's talk about what really matters behind the hard hats and high vis. It's the people. My guest today is Andy Fournier, construction supervisor for over 29 years. In this time, Andy has performed various roles such as structural steel erection, foreman, general foreman, construction manager, working on and in different projects in Canada and South America. Welcome, Andy, to our podcast today.
Hey, Holly. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so this podcast is, we'll say, different in the sense that we're really going to dig deep into, I guess, feelings, right? And how to manage the stress or the anxiety or any mental health issues or concerns. And a lot of people don't want to talk about that. But I thought that this would be important to go through it, especially when we talk about supervisors, construction supervisors, so busy. Your days start bright and early. You're probably the first one there, the last one to leave. Everything gets brought on to you. You have to solve problems, deal with different people. It's a lot, and nobody ever asks, hey, how are you doing?
Yep.
What do you think are some of the elements of supervising that can cause stress?
So I think primarily would be schedule and timelines. I mean, if there was no deadline and no max budget, if it's a job that's scheduled to be 2 years, but they said if you can finish it in 3 or 4 years and we don't care, I think there'd be a lot less stress, but we know it's not that easy. So definitely those two. People are obviously spending a lot of money trying to accomplish something and, keep their business going. So you feel responsibility to them to do your best.
Okay.
The other aspect would be just keeping people safe. As much as the industry's gotten much safer over the years, people are still people. So people still, for various reasons, will cut corners, will do things, have brain farts, if you will, where they do things that you're like, what were you thinking? And, lo and behold, a lot of times they weren't because they've got outside stresses from home or something else going on.
So how do you positively manage those elements and that stress?
I'd say on the schedule side and the budget is just being realistic with yourself. So someone somewhere put a number together, in maybe a short period of time because they had a deadline for providing an RFP. They did their best. But as you start doing the project and realize that there's other aspects that they missed, or that, people had just not thought of in general, that starts to build, right? It takes a little longer to do what you're trying to accomplish, but you have to accept that those are just the facts of life and construction. You can't start cutting corners or doing things that will lead to someone getting hurt. And again, realistically, that even if you do all these things, you're still probably going to be finishing later than expected anyway.
Okay. So what's the biggest source of stress for you when you're trying to meet those tight construction schedules?
I think for me, it's the personal aspect of feeling like somebody's put a lot of faith in you to get something done. The client is spending the money, hoping to get things done budget-wise because they've only got so much money to spend that year or what have you. Then you've got the responsibility of the families at home that send their loved ones to work to, provide for them. So you obviously want to make sure that they get home safe and unharmed. Throughout my career, I've seen people get hurt. I've seen people get killed. And it's an awful feeling going to a celebration of life, hugging a widow who, knows that you're probably one of the last people that's seen their husband alive or what have you, right? So it bears on you for sure. And I don't think you really ever get over it.
Yeah. Okay. So, having said that, what kind of assistance or help do you think you could have done, or maybe you've done to help you through those things? Because you're right, nobody wants to be part of that. But obviously, I can tell it still bothers you.
Oh, yeah.
You'll live with that forever. So, how do you work through that?
For me, it's always been routine of having my time to think. So for me, on my way to work, typically there's no music on. I've got about 20 minutes to get from my door to the gate. I've got a good 20 to 30 minutes, usually in my office in the morning before everybody starts showing up, to think about what I've got in the day. So again, trying to manage my tasks, where the highest priorities are so they don't all build up, and accepting the fact that I can't get everything done in a day. Jamie Morris was a guy that, well, told me a long time ago. He says, if you've got the expectation of just getting in there and trying to do 20 things in a day, you might get a piece of each one done. But if you prioritize what you have to get done, you could probably strike off 1 to 5 things and take the pressure off. So again, allowing yourself time to get those things done, being realistic about how long they take to do, and then just communicating, talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's been huge for me to just be honest, accept what things are, and then just, revising your own personal schedule to say, okay, that deadline, I can't meet it by the end of Friday this week, but I'll get it to you next Wednesday and I'll prioritize that. So
Okay.
I guess those are the things that I've utilized for myself to keep the stress as low as possible. And I would say the last one is I've always been able to leave work and shut it off.
Okay.
When I shut the lights here and I lock the doors and I drive away, I think about it for the first 10, 15 minutes. And then I start to think about my home life. And I mean, I'll get a call or what have you at night, or I'll think of something sporadically. But for the most part, I accept the fact that I'm shutting it off for the day, and I'll deal with it again when I start to drive to work the next day.
So, how important do you think that is for your mental health to do that, to say I'm shutting it off? Because I know a lot of people will tell me, "Oh no, I work like 7 days a week there. I'm a supervisor, or I'm the superintendent. I'm on call. It's never shut off."
Yeah. And I'm known for someone who works a lot. It's not a secret. My wife would remind you that I do work a lot, and I've been open and honest about it. I've probably averaged 6 days a week now for 10, 15 years, with these big projects. And so the importance of taking that time to take vacation. And I've always said to my wife or to the kids, if they're like, Dad, we want to go to camp or do something, we want you there. Okay, I'm there, right? And I'll deal with work when I get back. My wife's always told me, she said, the company can replace you probably within a week,
Mm-hmm.
but we can't replace you as husband or dad, right? So,
Right.
yeah, so I definitely just being honest with yourself and trying to give yourself the realistic time it takes to get things done. And if you can't, everything else needs to just fall outside of that.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be able to manage it if I didn't shut it off at night.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know how people say that they're just on the clock all the time. That's all you're thinking about.
And Holly, like for years, like not for years, but when I started getting into construction management, I remember several nights, you got 130 guys working day and night, 7 days a week. And I remember going home, laptop on the counter, working there, my wife sitting next to me, knowing that I'm trying to get this stuff done. And it just got to a point where it didn't get any better. If anything, it got worse because you're like, oh, I'll just do it at home, right? I'll accomplish more stuff. And you just have to shut it off. So there's times where I'll get up in the morning and I still do it where everybody's sleeping, and I'll take an hour or two. I'm not stressed, and I'll catch up on a couple little things I need to do. And then, oh, my son's up,
Right.
shut off the laptop and get back to home life, right? So you have to have that proper balance.
Okay. Awesome. Now, I'm sure you're going to say yes to this, but have you ever felt burnout?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So how did you deal with that?
Openly thinking about what's going on, communicating, talking to people in general. And I find if I have a conversation to my wife about it, she's like, well, just take the day off. If I have a conversation with people I work with, they can relate.
Yeah.
I would say my biggest source of relief when it comes to conversations about stress or work is actually my dad. So he was the same role, superintendent, that sort of thing, for obviously before me. So he can relate
Oh,
and he can tell me the same of, hey, this, I learned this and I try to do the same thing you're doing right now. And this is what worked for me. This was what didn't. So I think finding someone that is in a similar situation as you are, or did similar tasks that you did, or same position, is a good source to, again, being able to talk about it openly. My wife comes and the kids come from a different aspect of, Dad, we want to talk to you about how we feel you not here, or you stressed, or what have you. And I, again, been pretty good about hiding it from them when I am stressed, but sure, they're not fools. Like, they probably see that I'm extra tired and maybe just going to bed half an hour early or what have you, right? And burnt out.
yeah. Sometimes we don't see the changes in our either our behaviors, our answers, our mood swings, but
Nope,
they notice it right away.
absolutely.
Now, just for our listeners, what would lead to those burnout days or those times? What led up to it?
Like, I find workload. So, we have your typical routine day. This is what I do in the morning. I go for a site walk after lineup and so on. Then you start getting into, hey, can you bid another project? Help us estimate another project we're doing, So, okay, yeah, sure, I can take that on. Oh, we had an incident. Oh, we had a second incident 3 days later. So helping the safety team go through the IM and stuff. So it's all these little things that start to build up, and you don't really realize it till you're just like at a point where I can't realistically catch up on my workload and how far behind I am. And it's unfortunate, but a lot of where I catch up is when we're working weekends, or even right now we're on a 410 schedule, the guys, and I'm on a 510 schedule. So my Fridays are my catch up day.
Yeah. Okay.
So if it wasn't for those days, it would be pretty hard to manage. And then the other aspect would be to try to delegate stuff. We've got 5, 6, 7 people. This project's 7. I've been on project. We got like 15 people. So stop trying to take care of everything yourself, because you want it done perfect. Show people, take the time to maybe allow people to take stuff off your plate. And that's been very, very helpful. I've got some people doing that for me now. And yeah, it works well. Right. And then they're also learning stuff too.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Learning new skills for themselves as well.
Mhm.
But I am curious to know though, why can't you say no to any of these extra things?
I'd say over the last several years, I have said no, or basically said, if you want us to do that, then somebody else has to look after it. So basically saying no,
Okay.
or I'll put my input in it, but I'm not spending a week on this estimate. I'll give you a day of my time, because we're still running a project and we have other things that we need to accomplish, right? So being open and honest, right? Instead of just like, I can do that. Yeah, sure, I'll take care of it. Meanwhile, you're back of your mind, you're like, you don't even have any time to even do that, right? And then what suffers? Your mental health, your family, stress levels, all that stuff,
Yeah,
come to play. So
for sure. So I think more of us need to learn to say no, thank you.
yeah,
I'm happy to help, but it might be better suited for someone else in the organization.
absolutely.
That's good you brought that up, because I'm just curious to know how openly do you or can you talk about stress or mental health on the site with your workers?
I've can confidently say that that's probably one of the biggest facets of construction that I've grown to talk about most openly as the years have gone on. Being that I work a lot and I'm around people that do work a lot and see the stresses, and seeing how helpful it is to have people open up and talk about it. You'll see a lot of times like, hey guys, everybody good? Yeah, we're good. We're good. You pull Tim aside if you're having that one-on-one. Hey, I noticed that, you look a little tired, or if you're just talking to them about what they did in the weekend, and they start to kind of take deep breaths, or kind of express a little bit of their stresses. I didn't get my shed done. I got shingles still to put on it, and having them open up, and then, sharing that with everyone and just being honest, and even saying like, hey, I find that a little tired. What about you guys? Yeah, you know what? We're tired too. Because if you say it in a different way of like, we can get this done, right, guys? Like, yeah, we'll work next weekend too. Yeah, us too, right? Because nobody wants to. So being the first one to be, again, transparent about your own issues, and having people share even their own problems at home. we're a crew right now. We've got a project about 18 people. I've never had as close of a group as we have now,
Why is that?
just because of that honesty.
Okay.
Having a smaller group helps. Definitely a lot harder for people to open up when you're 100 people in a lunchroom, and then again, that's where you need to have those smaller conversations or talking to your foremans about talking to their group or their people. I think more and more people are tired, stressed, overworked, maybe not feeling they have as much money as home. Things have gone up in price and all that stuff. And again, it's these little things, right? Someone told me a long time ago, death by 1,000 cuts.
Mm,
So, all these little things just slowly bear and get to the point where you just can't handle them anymore.
right. So, do you guys include in your safety talks anything about mental health or stress?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say probably once every month or two, systematically, as far as the safety talks are concerned. But more importantly, if I hear of anything or even a personal situation, we'll include it in what we call our daily reminders, just to again open up the conversation and not be in a hurry to finish the safety talk.
Okay.
So we'll do the standard safety talk, and then we'll get into weather, and then we get into daily reminders. The daily reminders is the times we don't just read off of it. Here's the daily reminder, make sure you guys put your wheel chocks on, and make sure you guys do your pre-ops on the equipment or what have you. And then, by the way, one time I was around the guy and he didn't do that, and this is what happened, right? Providing information or stories that relate to people. And then all of a sudden now the other guy at the other end of the room is like, you know what, that happened to me too. And I noticed this, and allowing the time for people to express themselves, I think, is big.
Okay. Again, so you're doing those safety talks and you're introducing that stress or, hazard of mental health and stuff, but do you still feel that there is a stigma around mental health in construction?
There is, I feel like, in the sense of like, there's still an aspect of like, hey, we're in construction, you got to be tough, deal with it, suck it up.
Hmm.
But I think people are more open now, again, if you can get into natural, honest conversations, really bring out the most in people. And again, getting to know people, right? Like if some random person comes up to me and say, hey, how's things at home? Yeah, they're great. I'm not going to tell that person, but I mean, if I develop a relationship, I'm a little stressed. I didn't get to manage to finish working on my quad or whatever. And okay, like, do you want Friday off, just to get it done? I really appreciate it. Well, it's going to be slow next Friday. Take it off. Come back on Monday and, reset.
Yeah.
And we've done that lots, right? But you don't know that if you don't talk to your people.
Yeah. And I also think too, like you need to have the right people in charge. So, like for yourself, as the general foreman or construction supervisor or superintendent, you understand that. Like you said, it's not all about work, 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 work.
Yeah.
Don't care about your life. We got to get this done.
Yeah. No, that personal side of things, Holly, is huge. Like I've seen really good supervisors because they know their craft, but they're terrible when it comes to PR. They're unapproachable,
Yeah.
and then in a spin-off to that is the morale of the crew is terrible.
Yeah, it's not good. Sometimes the wrong people are in the wrong positions, right?
Yep.
Have you ever felt any pressure or stress, when we're trying to follow rules and regulations, whether someone's saying, well, let's just do it this way, and we can't do it that way.
Yeah, it's I wish things were more standardized. And again, I know it's not that easy, but a lot of the big clients we work for, working at heights, for example, is 6 feet. I've heard even 4 feet.
Mm.
So they leave a site, they come to you, they've been working at a site that 10 feet is, where they got to tie off, and then they come. And so that inconsistency definitely is a big piece of the frustrations that we see, and you could sit with them and talk to them about why. And, the client wants to do this, they're paying. So, you're paid by the hour. If it takes you a little longer, so be it. And those are the angles I try to approach, but it still doesn't change that human mind of dealing with the frustration or this is overwhelming. The other part I find is because it's become a lot when it comes to the paperwork and, clap twice every step you take and so on, and people feel very invasive, it clouds the mind. So I find that there's so much that a person expects. Do your FLHA card? Did you sign off on the safety talk? Did you sign off on a JHA review? Did you do your pre-op? Did you inspect your harness, daily, right? And did you inspect your tools? Did you plan your work? Oh, what do you mean you forgot your gloves in the trailer? Because their mind is just like so inundated with what's going on. And I've seen people do silly things because the brain can only handle so much. So we try to keep it as simple as we can. And I feel that that non-standardization of things really makes it difficult
Yeah.
because the human mind, again, is only capable of doing so much and everyone's a little different.
Yes, everybody learns differently, remembers differently. So again, as the supervisor, you need to know how your workers understand, work, comprehend, and you got to work around that.
Yeah.
Now, are there any support systems available to help with stress and anxiety for yourself and for your workers?
Lean on family and friends, I think, is a big one. And like I've mentioned, people that can relate to what you're going through, maybe similar positions or backgrounds. We've got treatment centers for drug and alcohol, like de novo sort of things. Like for us, where we deal with union contractors, so there are support systems out there. But when it comes to stress and mental health, that's not talked about as much for support because you see it more on the drug and alcohol side, something physical.
Right. Okay.
Other than the communication and talking to people, it's not something that's well known out there for how to get treatment for it, right? Counseling, that sort of thing. It's available, but I've yet to see anybody really take advantage of those things.
Well, usually that would come with a cost too.
Sure. Yeah. But again, a lot of the union benefits cover those types of things, right? So,
Right.
and I don't think people realize how beneficial it might be. I've never utilized it myself. Maybe I'm just being a hypocrite as well, but of how helpful that might just be.
Yeah, because like you're saying, you talk to your wife and the kids, and they're like, "Whatever, just take the day off."
Yeah.
That's not the answer you need to hear.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to answer that question because they're not doing your job.
Yeah.
So sometimes these external treatments, like you said, they're trained to do that.
Right.
They're trained to listen. They're trained to provide you with guidance and different tools
Mhm.
to help manage these things, right? So
Yeah.
so you're right. I think there's probably stuff out there, like there is support out there. Maybe that's something you could include in a safety talk, or a little bit of research on what type of tools are available and how that could benefit some of the workers in the workplace, because again, maybe someone's not asking the question.
And what we've done too, Ollie, is we do these projects with a lot of overtime, and we basically mandate that every long weekend at a minimum, we take it off. So, and then, we'll get into every second weekend, take at least a Sunday off or what have you, because the guys will always take the shift because everybody wants a little bit more money. So, you'll get the odd gentleman that's like, I'm good. I've saved my money. I'll take the day off. But for the most part, if it's available, people will take it. So, but if you tell everyone, hey, let your family know that we will, and we've had the client many times come, can you work the long weekend? Nope. And Christmas, we always take at least 2 weeks off.
Oh, wow.
I've done projects where we try to work through Christmas. It's the worst thing we've ever done because people are tired, they're hungover, mind's not on task. And it's just let everyone take a good break. And everyone's like, oh, 2 weeks off. Like, that's 2 weeks no pay. But they come back to you, they're well rested. Yeah, they got to get back into the groove a bit for a few days because they've been off, but it is very healthy for them. So, again, understanding that you sometimes, just like your mom would tell you, you have to do this. Well, we do the same, right? It was just, everyone's just going to take this time off and utilize.
Well, that's great, because I was going to ask you what changes, in the workplace could help reduce any type of stress or anxiety, and that's it there.
Yeah.
By saying we're off. There's no overtime. Sorry, client, we're done. And so that is a good way to do that.
I've even done it a step further, Holly, where I've seen it where everyone's just getting frustrated. And even though we're scheduled to work, shut it down.
Oh,
So it comes Thursday, you kind of see it building, things aren't going good. John and Tommy aren't getting along. There's all these little things, and you just kind of see it building. And it's like, you know what? Let's just take the weekend off. And then you come back Monday, John and Tommy are best friends again. And, just everybody's relaxed, and Fred got to go fishing. And, so again, maybe forcing people to take that time when they maybe don't realize it themselves that they need it.
yeah, because we all need a break from working.
Yeah.
We need to do other things that we love as well, right?
Yeah.
Now, in your years of supervising, have you ever had to deal with violence and harassment?
Several times, not often, but I've had it where, again, tensions build. So, and back to the pressures. So there's either two elements. There's the pressure of trying to get the job done, where it may or may not be realistic, but there's other trades in the way, or certain things led to why people can't finish their work. And then the other element of things going on at home.
Mm.
Many, many times I feel when these blowouts happen, it has very little to do with what's going on at work. It's something personal at home or something that's going on outside of the workplace. Taking the time, I've had two people pretty much almost choke themselves out and, ready to go round two. And it's like, okay, I'm going to pull these guys aside. You sit them down, you talk to them. I've had them, within probably an hour or two, just being friends again.
Mm-hmm.
And, they break down, yeah, it's my wife's leaving me. I'm just stressed, the kids or college or whatever's going on. And, I'm sorry, Frank, I'm just mad because, you took my hammer. And a lot of times it's like dealing with little kids. It's the same. Like, I feel like a lot of times when I get into those situations, I'll deal with it the same way as I would with my kids when they were 5 and 7.
Yeah.
It's just like, let's take a break here. Let's talk about it. What's going on and how can we make it better? Do you need time off? Do you want to change position of where you're working? If we only have one shovel and we're fighting over the same shovel. Okay, I didn't know that. Let's buy a second shovel. Right on. Let's get 3. Yeah, right on. Can we get a different type of shovel too? Yeah, no problem. Right. And it's just these little hearing people out, trying to always keep your finger on the pulse to let people express themselves and adjust accordingly to make sure that they're successful as well.
Okay, good. I was just thinking if there's any way possible, before these blowouts happen, to have, the conversations ahead of time. Would it be beneficial if there was a counselor that came out every once in a while and had open time to sit and, if the guys wanted to go and talk,
Yeah.
and that's it, just talk.
Yeah.
I don't, no opinions given, just talk, then, get it off their chest and maybe blowouts wouldn't happen, something like that.
And honestly, Holly, for the most part, when I would see these things happen, it was at their peak of like heavy overtime, heavy scheduling, trying to cram stuff in. So you're almost building that pressure. You're turning the dial and just pushing these people to the limit, not personally, but just, their foremans are, the client, and and you can't be everywhere, especially on projects. There's 100, 150 guys.
Yeah.
You got a lot of different personalities there. And, sometimes
and it's the environment.
spices just don't mix, right? It's
Yeah. Now we know that in Ontario on construction sites, we do have a crisis, and that crisis is the opioids. So do you worry about this on your sites, or are you aware of opioid use or presence of it?
I would want to say that I've almost seen it all. I've seen people start consuming it. Again, you don't see it firsthand, but you see a change in their personalities, their work habits, not showing up. I've seen it where people are struggling with quitting a bad habit. So, they come to a new job, they haven't been working, they're clean, they went for treatment. All of a sudden they start making money, they can afford their bad habit. Another big piece of it is, you are who you hang out with. So, some of these older guys, maybe they're single, like to party. New young guys come into the trade. Hey, young guy, come party with us, and then they get them into these bad habits. We've let people go and we've sent them for treatment just for that reason, right? It's too dangerous for everyone around us.
Mm-hmm.
And following up with how they managed, how they did. And a lot of these people, unfortunately, they're in and out of these programs. They just, because again, back to their personal life, who they hang out with, they just can't kick their habit or their routines. It's not so much the drugs or the alcohol, it's their lifestyle.
Yeah.
And construction is bad for that because you've got people making big money, and a lot of times they're working out of town. They don't have a good life. So someone told me a long time ago, they said, what does a good supervisor have in common? I don't know, he's organized, he shows up early, he gets along with everybody. Like, no, a good wife at home.
Yeah.
You start going, yeah, that guy's got his shit together. That person's, organized, but they stick to a routine. And for the most part, they have a good home life.
They have a good support system.
Yeah. And someone else had said, how do you run a job if you can't run your life?
Right.
Back to your habits. We don't realize it sometimes, but it's training yourself to do the right things and stick to a certain regime that, sets you up for success.
Yeah, for sure.
And that goes right down to the worker.
So if there was one thing you could change about how construction projects are managed to reduce stress, what would it be?
Realistic timelines, realistic budgets,
Yeah.
not biting off more you can chew. I think for a client, for me, I feel the ideal schedule, and you always have this, right? Our budget for this year is this, so we got to spend it all this year. Well, why don't we go over, instead of a year, make it 2 years, and instead of 6 or 7 tens, make it 4 or 5 tens. Give people weekends off and long weekends. Allow a routine, because as soon as things get out of that routine, that's when the chaos comes. So the stress builds, people aren't getting along, material's not available because you're trying to speed things up too quickly. Maybe equipment's not available. So again, trying to keep things some quote unquote normal and routine, I think, is probably something I would say is, I would suggest. And we've done it with some clients before. We're like, can you get it done in 7 tens? It's like, you know what? Let's go 3 months of 5 tens instead of a month and a half of just cramming it all in there. And I'll say this.
Yeah.
I can confidently say I did 2 very, very similar, almost identical projects. So like furnace rebuilds. So they're basically 6 weeks, 7/12's the first one, furnace shutdown. People were ready to choke each other out by the end, very tired, stressed out. You could see it and then just basically finishing the job just on time. 2 years later, we do the exact same job. And we said, you know what? Let's do something crazy here. Let's just go 7 tens, 10 days or 10 hours a day, which is still a lot.
Yeah.
But people had that extra time to go home, have a meal with their families, get some extra sleep. And just that 2 hours, that hour and a half, it actually worked out to. We finished earlier. People said it was the best job they'd been on for a shutdown.
Oh.
And people were all getting along. So you want to talk comparison? It was mind blowing when we seen the results, and I'll never do a shutdown 7/12, 7/14 ever again.
Wow, that is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. I mean, if you have more time to sleep and rest,
people are more productive, they're getting along, and so on and so on. And
exactly. Okay. Do you have any advice to new supervisors on managing stress in high pressure environments?
Again, understanding what you're getting into, expecting that there's, that you're going to deal with some of these pressures, whether it's timelines, people, time management, and self-checking. Are you capable of doing all those things? Are you able to structure your life, your home life, and even your work life to stick to some type of routine that will make you successful? If you're all over the place and you still want to go party at night, show up last minute, you're just asking for something to go wrong. Something we're not going to solve anytime soon. But again, I think the communication piece and just people being open and honest, I think it's the first step to getting there.
Yeah. And I think that's changed over the years as well, right? Not so closed up.
Yeah.
People are more open to talk about stuff with someone else that they can trust or respect. And like you said, then other people start opening up too. And
absolutely,
and it makes for a better work environment.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you once again for offering to do this podcast with me. I do appreciate your time.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. I'm your host, Holly Baril, and be sure to subscribe and like us on your podcast channel and visit us at IHSA.ca for a wealth of health and safety resources and information. And remember, your health, your safety, your future, protect all three.
The IHSA Safety Podcast. For more episodes, tips, and all things safety, go to IHSA Safety Podcast.ca. Thanks for listening.
Start each workday by reinforcing awareness and control of hazards in your workplace with a 5-minute safety talk. IHSA's Free Safety Talks manual covers over 150 topics, such as personal protective equipment and traffic control, with more topics added all the time. Visit IHSA.ca to download your free IHSA Safety Talks manual today.